Hi there, my name is James, and this time I will be discussing the rules for the limit. So, as a previous section, I said in chapter 2 for 2.4 about limits exist only if both the limit and coming from the left and coming from the right are the same. So, meaning that limit x from the left f of x has to equal c, and limit f of x coming from the, as x approaches c from the right, has to equal c. Well, we know that, so what if there's a constant? The first rule is going to be the constant rule. We usually use k to represent the constant of f of x. So the first rule states that if f of limit of f of x, or limit k, because now we have a value there for k, exists as x approaches c, is going to equal the constant k. Example would be limit 2 as x approaches 1 would equal 2, because this value will not change, it will remain the same throughout. Say we didn't have a value there for the constant, limit of f of x as x approaches 1 would equal 1. And remember, it's going to equal 1 if and only if both the limits coming from the right and coming from the left are the same. And that's the first rule. The second rule is the sum rule. And basically, sum rule is that limit x approaching c of f of x plus g of x is going to equal limit f approaching c, or x, and x approaching c plus limit of g of x as x approaches c. Example of this would be limit 2 as x approaches c plus limit 3 as x approaches c would equal 2 plus 3, give us the value of 5. The third rule for the limits is the difference rule. It would be the same concept basically as limit of x approaches c of f of x minus g of x would give you limit f of x as x approaches c minus limit g of x as x approaches c. Our fourth rule is going to be the constant multiple rule. The constant multiple rule is basically you have a limit with a constant x value as x approaches c. We are gonna take care of this by moving constant to the front of the limit and leaving the x behind, and as x approaches c. And our next rule we'll be discussing is the product rule. This states as limit f of x times g of x as x approaches c is gonna equal limit f of x as x approaches c times limit g of x as x approaches c. And that's for the product rule. We have another rule, which is the quotation rule or the caution rule, which states that limit f of x over g of x as x approaches c is going to equal limit f of x as x approaches c over limit g of x as x approaches c. And now we have the power rule, which is basically limit f of x, and you have r over s is gonna as x approaches c is gonna equal, in parentheses you're gonna have limit f of x as r over s. Example would be limit x approaching 2 as the product is inside x of 3 is going to equal limit x, and you have power 3 over 2, and you're gonna put that inside the brackets, the limit inside the brackets. And these are all the rules for the limit